Today's episode is sponsored by American Creative Consulting. If you need a fresh look for your business or side hustle, contact ACC for pricing. Specializing in high-quality, low-cost websites and design, their team of designers will be exactly what you need to succeed in 2020. Visit designedbyacc.com to get started now.
Thanks for downloading. If you haven't done so already, check out my book, Behind the Pink Ribbon, on Amazon and Amazon Kindle. In my book, I share my personal journey behind the pink ribbon. On this episode, I had the opportunity to talk with Monique Colwell, a 2-year breast cancer survivor. Monique was diagnosed with stage 3 invasive ductal carcinoma at the age of 43. She talks about having some firmness in her breast, but being pushed off by doctors, and then going from what she thought was going to be stage 0 cancer to actually stage 3. Take a listen into Monique's story. Welcome to Behind the Pink Ribbon, where we share stories, information, and other content related to breast cancer. My name is Melissa Adams. I am a 12-year genetic breast cancer survivor. I've learned so much through my own journey with breast cancer. I have met some amazing people along the way, many that have become lifelong friends. I have experienced the emotional roller coaster of a breast cancer diagnosis, heartache, anger, frustration, loneliness, and even gratitude. Through this podcast, we will speak to breast cancer survivors, supporters, and healthcare professionals to gain insight and understanding behind the pink ribbon. I'm here with Monique. Monique is a 2-year breast cancer survivor. She was diagnosed with invasive ductal carcinoma, stage 3, at the age of 43. So I want to welcome you to the podcast, Monique. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about your story today, and I want to first start with how you found out that you had breast cancer. Did you find a lump? Did you go for a regular mammogram? What kind of happened?
I did not have the best of luck when it came to that. So I had on my left breast, I had some firmness that my husband had noticed, and I had noticed, and I had just recently moved to this area where I'm currently living. And so I made an appointment, went to the doctor thinking, okay, let's figure out what this is. I've never had a mammogram previous because people kept saying, oh, we can push you off, you're slender, you have no history. So anyways, I went to the doctor and I'm like, okay, I'm kind of concerned about this firmness. And the doctor's like, you don't have anything to be worried about. We think it's fibrous tissue, like you have dense breasts. It's probably absolutely nothing. And I'm like, well, I would like to have it checked off. And I was getting pushed off again, like, you're young. I don't foresee you having any issues. You don't, I guess, have the body type.
But you were 43 when you were diagnosed.
Yes, they were pushing me to age 50 because of the new standards.
The new standards, they have changed? It's back to 50?
Yes.
I have not heard that.
They were pushing me. They were like, well, you might be able to get one when you're 45. And I'm like, no, I don't want to wait. I want to know what this is.
Right.
So she's like, okay, why don't you go in? We can get you a baseline. That way, we have something to compare it to. And I said, okay, great. So I went over and I got my mammogram, and they found something, and I'm like, okay, it has to be related to that hard mass.
So was it a mass, or it was, you talked about firm.
It was firm, but it turned out to be a mass. But
so,
sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
No, that's okay. It's totally fine. So in terms of firmness, was it you didn't feel like a bump or maybe something that would feel like a marble?
I just felt firm, and it wasn't like a bump. There was no protruding anything. I had no lumps. I had no visual symptoms.
Okay.
So I went in and they said, oh, yeah, we found something. We should have you come back. We want to, maybe biopsy it. And I'm like, okay, great. And I'm thinking, oh, it's that spot. So when I talked to them, they're like, nope, we found something down below. And I'm like, okay, well, what about this firmness up here? And they're like, well, we're pretty sure it's fibrous. We don't see anything in it. And I'm like, okay. So then they're like, well, let's get you into a biopsy. and see if, this little tiny grain of salt, it was tinier than a grain of salt at the bottom of my breast. And that's what they were more interested in. And so they were trying to figure out when to schedule me because I guess they were going on vacation and whatnot. And so they were pushing me out like 4 months. And I'm like, I
Oh my
don't want to
gosh.
wait. Oh, yes.
Sorry, I wasn't expecting 4 months.
No, months.
I mean, I'm
Yes.
thinking vacation, maybe a week and a half,
No.
but 4 months.
No, they were all taking tons of time off, and it was kind of a nightmare. So I said, no, figure me out. I will come in at any hour at this point. Like, I don't want to wait.
Yeah.
So I got in 2 days later. I showed up at like 6 a.m. They got me ahead of everybody. And at that point, I'm just happy because I didn't want to wait. So
You weren't necessarily scheduled. They were just like, okay, she's not gonna let this fly.
well, and they said they don't blame me if they were in my shoes.
Yeah.
They would want to know. So they understood.
Okay.
So the nurses there were pretty cool once they figured out that I didn't want to wait.
Okay, so they kind of squeezed you in before maybe the appointments technically started?
Yes, so
Okay.
we got me in, and so they did the biopsy with the huge needle and all that. And that happened on a Wednesday, and on Friday they called to tell me it was cancerous. And I said, okay, like, give me details. And they said, oh, it's stage 0. There's nothing to worry about. This is why we do mammograms. You are so lucky we caught this so early. You're never going to have to do radiation and chemotherapy. So we're going to send you to the plastic surgeon. The plastic surgeon's just going to pluck it out and you can go on with your life.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah, it gets better. Oh, yes.
Well, I want to kind of ask you a little bit about the biopsy, just because they're not looking at the area that was firm. They're looking at this
Correct.
little tiny grain of salt.
Correct.
So I know that the whole idea is, they insert a big needle.
Yes.
And they try to aspirate the tissue of the tumor.
Yes.
So
I had this. Oh, go ahead.
I'm just kind of curious, like if it was that small, what were they trying to get to?
They saw calcification.
Okay.
And so sometimes they can be cancerous. So that's what he was trying to get to, the radiologist.
Okay. That makes sense.
And unfortunately, I live in an area where there's no oncology at the moment.
Where do you live?
So I live in Pullman, Washington.
Pullman, Washington?
Yes, it's home to WSU. It's a big college football place. It's a great place to live.
And there's no oncology.
So
Okay.
when they called to tell me they were going to send me to a plastic surgeon and get it plucked out and that they'd send me a reminder in a year for my next mammogram, I'm like, this is weird. I'm like, I would like to have an oncologist say, yes, you are on the right path. It was weird to me. And of course, the closest place for me to go is Spokane, Washington, which was an hour and a half away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I picked up the phone that Monday because it was late in the afternoon on a Friday. So everything was closing.
Mm-hmm.
So I called first thing Monday and made an appointment to go get a second opinion to see if, going to the plastic surgeon and getting this minute speck removed because it was supposedly stage 0 was a good plan.
Right.
Or if,
Yeah,
because I
absolutely.
I wanted somebody who deals with that to kind of figure it out.
For sure.
So
and
they
so at this
said-
point, you're kind of thinking that's what it's going to be. Like it's,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's just this, speck, as you said, and it'll be, go get it done and move on.
Yes, that's exactly what I thought. So I made the appointment and they needed to get my record. So it would take about a week. So 2 weeks later so me and my husband went with me because he wanted to know also.
Yeah.
So we're sitting there and the nurse comes out to get me and she gives me a big hug and I'm thinking, uh-oh, like this is weird. Like,
And it's a nurse that you've never met.
Correct. And she's
she
like,
gives you
I'm
a
so
hug.
sorry. And she's like, I'm so sorry. And I'm thinking, sorry for what? Because
Wow.
I'm thinking, and I'm like, and that just that was I'm like looking at my husband going, okay, something weird's going on.
Absolutely. I mean, I would not expect somebody to be, I mean, maybe she's super sensitive.
Yeah, and I'm thinking this is stage 0.
That would be weird. I would think it would be
was.
weird. Yeah.
It was weird. So I go in and sit down with the oncologist, and she's like going on about this huge mass, and that it had infiltrated my lymph nodes. And I stopped her and I said, "Who are you speaking of? Like, that's like, I have this little speck, and the doctor had put in a marker so that the plastic surgeon could easily find it. Like, who are you speaking about?"
Right. Wrong
and
chart.
And she's looking at me, and she like has me pull up the chair and look at the screen and says, "This is you, right?" And I'm like, "That's my name." And she goes, "We have no idea why they did that, because and it was the place where I had the firmness." She goes, "Yeah, you're going to have to do radiation chemo. We're not sure how far advanced, if it's spread." Yeah, that changed my whole life right there.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, for 2 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were kind of thinking this was going to be something that, and I would never ever use the word easy, but it would be minimally invasive, minimal
Correct.
treatments. Certainly none of it's easy. To go from thinking that it's stage 0 to stage 3 is a big difference.
It is a huge difference. And the fact that he missed the big mass, the radiologist there missed the big mass. And I kept being told that it was just fibrous. And then, find out that they should have ultrasounded it, and they would have found it easier that way.
Right.
So yeah, it was like, okay, well, I guess I get to put my shoes on and jump to the front of the line and go, wow, what are we doing? Let's get this show on the road.
When you had your biopsy, did they not do it via ultrasound?
They didn't. No, they did it via the mammogram machine.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that was an option. I did mine. It was ultrasound guided. So I'm thinking, how did they miss that? Like, why would you not cover the entire breast?
No, Pete, they did it by the mammogram machine. Apparently, if you get the brand new 3D imaging machines, you can do biopsies through it.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, they didn't have those around when I was going through my treatments, or at least my hospital didn't have access. So, okay. So what were you thinking and feeling at that point?
Well, I was a little angry. I won't lie to you. Because I was like, well, how do you miss this?
And rightfully so. I'd be angry too.
Yes. So, and then I'm like, okay, crap. Now I have to figure out what to do, because this is all new ground to me, because I don't know anyone that has gone through this. So it was like, okay, I guess I get to figure this all out. Let's go for it. That's, because I want to live.
Sure. Yeah.
So I just jumped right in and said, let's figure this out as we go.
And what about your husband? I mean, was he there in the room with you?
Yes.
And
yeah, he was more in shock than I was. Like, he just kind of sat there in disbelief, like this was actually happening. Whereas I was like, okay, this just happened. I'm going to have to process it, but I'm going to have to not, take too long, because I need to get this. I need to keep moving.
Right. And that's for sure. I mean, that's a great point, is that, time really is of the essence, and we don't have a lot of time to process.
Yes, that is correct. So 2 days later, I was having a PET scan and all that, all the scans and the MRIs and all the blood work, and just getting me all staged.
Right.
So yeah, and then it was like, I think 3 weeks later, I was starting chemo.
Okay. So you said that there was no history in your family.
Correct. And I also had the gene, they had me do that gene sequencing to see if I carry the gene, and I do not.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask if they sent you through for genetic testing, because
they did.
Okay. It's fascinating to me. Sometimes they send them through with a family history, and sometimes they don't. And then sometimes people don't really have a strong family history, and they send those people through. So I'm always kind of curious, like, how is it decided? Maybe they're just doing it for everybody at this point in time, as they should, in my opinion, in my very humble opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It's good to know.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So then did you do chemo first, or did you have a surgery in there? What?
So my oncologist, it was kind of, it was kind of a new way because I'm not used to having options when you show up to the doctor. So she gave me a choice. They could go in and remove it if I really wanted it removed. Or I could do chemo and see if the chemo that they're putting me on works based on whether it shrinks the tumor or not. So I chose to do the chemo first and then watch to see if we could shrink the tumor and
Okay.
if we were on the right course.
Yeah, for sure. And so do you remember what the size of the tumor was?
Let's see. I believe it was 5.
5 centimeters?
Yes.
Okay.
It
So
was
that
a
was
good
a pretty
size one.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So you did chemotherapy. Yep. How long did you do chemotherapy?
I did a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
But I did the really nasty stuff that makes your hair fall out. I started that beginning like May, and I was done in September.
Okay.
And
a year and a half is a long time.
Well, I ended up being HR2 positive, and it just took forever. We could never get my HR2 results. They always kept coming back equivocal.
Okay. And what does that mean in terms of equivocal?
It means that it is neither positive or negative. It is right smack on the fence. Yes, I had to be difficult. Not only and so it's really rare that happens. So for whatever reason, the tumor said, we're not going to give you those results. So because I had another biopsy to try to get those results. So they actually took 5 samples from me, and all of them came back equivocal.
Wow. I mean, because that really helps to guide in terms of whether or not you need the Herceptin.
Yes, and so we decided to quit poking me to try to get results.
That's kind.
Yeah, because we were going to have it removed anyways.
Yeah.
That we just wait until I had my mastectomy to go ahead, and then they can play around with all the tissue they want.
Right.
So then they ended up having to fluoresce it. They had to do this huge long, where they grow it in a lab to try to get it, and I barely came back positive. But because I touched as I like to put it, I dipped my toe in that side of the fence. Then I ended up taking Herceptin, which is fine.
Okay. So at what point did you have well, first of all, did the chemo work? Did it shrink the tumor? Okay.
Yes, it was shrinking the tumors. My lymph nodes were softening up. For all purposes, it looked like it was doing a great job.
Okay. So then at what point did you have the mastectomy?
3 weeks after I did my last chemotherapy, so September 27th.
Okay. And that was of 2018?
2017.
Oh, 17. Okay. Trying to do math. Not my...
Oh, yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
I elected to have a double because I didn't want to take another chance.
Right. And it was in the left breast?
Correct.
Yeah. So you just said, don't want this to ever happen. Just going to go with it.
Yes.
Okay.
And for reconstruction purposes, it does make it look better.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask, did you do reconstruction at that point in time?
I did. I mean, I was on the fence about it, and I'm thankful I did it now.
Okay.
Because at the time, it wasn't a big deal. But it was one of those decisions that if you were going to do it, you need to make that decision then.
Okay. So you did the immediate reconstruction versus the delayed?
Well, here's the funny part. So until they removed my cancer, they had to determined whether or not I was going to have radiation. So basically it relied upon if they could get rid of it out of my lymph system, which is really difficult to do. So I could only have like expanders put in case I had to do the
radiation.
Yes. Which I ended up.
And you did have to do radiation?
I did.
Okay.
And that was my first ever surgery. So I never had gallbladder and appendix. I didn't start with tonsils, nothing.
Wow.
So
Welcome
that
to the
I
surgery
know.
world. I
I
mean, go
know.
big or
I
go
never,
home, sister.
that's what I said. I said, well, I'm here. I've never had anesthesia. I've never taken anything more than Tylenol in my life.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, well, I guess I'm going big. And it kind of freaked out the anesthesiologist a little bit because he's looking and I'm like, I have nothing to tell you other than I hope I wake up.
Wow. I'm sure. I have no doubt that they were probably terrified.
Yeah, because it took them 9 hours.
Yeah. Wow. And your system was probably like, what in the world is this?
I actually woke up and felt the best I ever felt in the recovery room. Like I woke up and I remember them saying to me, "What's your pain level?" And I'm like, 0. And they're like, "Seriously, what's your pain?" I'm like, "I want to eat."
Oh my gosh. I never had that experience.
Yeah, it was a great experience waking up because I was like, okay, I'm feel great. I can't explain why that happened, but I
Wow.
liked it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would have definitely preferred to wake up that way. So yeah, that's okay. So how many rounds of radiation did you do?
I did. Let's see, when it was all said and done, 25.
25. Okay.
Yes.
And then did you have any other kind of treatments, any kind of hormone therapy, physical therapy?
Yes. So I had a researcher get involved in my case because the Mayo Clinic is involved in my case because I can't be I just can't be. I have to be outside of the box in everything I do. So, and it was discovered that I produce too much estrogen.
Okay. So you're ERPR positive?
Yes, like I'm off the chart for estrogen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was determined that my ovaries are overproducing.
Okay.
So we went in and did a full removal of everything.
Okay.
Just to be on the safe side.
So you did the hysterectomy and oophorectomy, which is removal of the cervix, the fallopian tubes, and the ovaries?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
So I did that, and then now I'm on that anti-estrogen, I can never say it correctly, the East Extreme something.
I'm not even sure. Is it an aromatase inhibitor?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. It's an AI. I know that much.
Yeah. I can never pronounce half those ones at least.
That's all right. I think I think they do that just to complicate things. So when did you have the hysterectomy and the oophorectomy?
In March of 2018.
Okay. So things kind of really progressed fast for you.
Correct.
Okay. So, and then I was trying to make sense of it. You had the mastectomy, and then after you had the mastectomy, you had to go back and do additional chemotherapy, correct?
Correct. Once my HR2 finally got figured out.
Okay.
And then I had to jump into a radiation also.
So you did radiation and chemotherapy at the same time?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. What was that like? I don't think that I've met anyone or know of anyone that has done both at the same time. So I'm kind of curious what that experience was like for you.
So it wasn't like the nasty chemo. It was the Herceptin. Then I did it with the newer drug called Perjeta.
Okay.
So it wasn't as, I guess, toxic because you could drive yourself for them. So that was the bonus for me. But overall, it wasn't bad. I mean, I did okay with radiation. I did have all the severe burns, so I had to deal with that. And it does zap your energy, I will tell you that.
Absolutely.
But
so in terms of like the therapies, were you able to get those in your hometown, or were you driving an hour and a half?
I was driving an hour and a half.
And for radiation, you were driving an hour and a half every single day.
No, my husband's relatives put me up. They live in the area.
Okay, wonderful.
Yes, and because it was on my left side and I had done research, because I didn't want the radiation to hit my heart, they have this breathing apparatus at certain radiation machines. So I did the targeted radiation.
Okay.
And so I had to have this mask, and I would breathe so that when my lungs expanded, they had a way to hit the target but avoid my lungs and my heart.
Okay.
And it was the only, otherwise I thought I was going to have to go to like Seattle or somewhere to get that because I didn't want my heart damaged or my lungs.
Yeah. I hadn't even thought about that. That underneath of your breast on the left side is your heart. And of course, if, the radiation is targeted in that area, it can certainly impact your heart.
Yeah. So I had done my research previous just in case. So I was prepared. So yeah. So they put me up, and plus the radiation doctor wouldn't let me go unless I had a place to stay because he didn't want to risk me driving because it was right around Thanksgiving when I started radiation.
Okay.
Because they had to give me time to heal from my mastectomy.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, driving an hour and a half, I can't even begin to fathom. Not that I'm sure there are people that have done it, but it certainly is not ideal, and especially for radiation.
Yeah, so I stayed there. Yeah, so I got through that.
Wow.
And then I guess, yeah.
So currently you are taking the aromatase inhibitor, and I'm assuming that you're, at this point being seen every so often for follow-up. And is that kind of what's happening right now?
Yes. So right now I am going every 3 months. I got my first nuclear bone scan, and then I get a CT scan, and they've come back clean. So that's good news.
Yeah, that's a great celebration.
It is. So we'll keep up with that because it'll be in December when I've been since a year from my last chemo.
Okay.
So, yeah, and I had my port removed in December also. So, yeah, it's coming up.
Yeah, yeah. And those are always, I tell you, those milestones are always things that continue to, live with you. Every single date I can remember. So you mentioned that you have a husband. Do you have any children?
Yes, I had she was 6 at the time I was diagnosed. She's 9 now.
Okay.
Little girl.
Okay. Yeah. And so I'm assuming that they were really kind of your support system.
Yeah, and my sister and my mom, and yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, it sounds like obviously your husband's family too, putting you up for that period of time. That's amazing, really.
It was so appreciative. Oh my gosh. It made my life easier.
Oh my gosh. I can't even, to be able to make that change, to not be that far away is hugely important. So, so kind of thinking, I mean, your story really truly is very different. There are so many layers to it and complexities. I think that yours is the first one where it's kind of been, this complex. I'm kind of curious, how did all of this impact your life? Is there anything, you're still pretty new into your diagnosis, but I'm curious if there's anything that if there's been any positive impact that it's had on your life.
Yeah, I love the community where I live because these people that haven't known me very long had come. Like I had started a job and I'd only been on my job for 8 months when this all happened to me. So the outpouring of support from people that barely knew me has been tremendous.
That's awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, because, sometimes we talk about people not being neighbors anymore or, not having a sense of community anymore. But to hear that they really kind of pulled through for you when they didn't really know you, that's awesome.
Yes. I mean, I couldn't have asked for better neighbors or anything. They were making sure my husband and my daughter had food when I was up doing radiation, and yeah, people would check and constantly ask how I'm doing. And I mean, it was awesome.
Yeah. Wow. And did you attend any kind of support groups or anything?
No, only because the only support group at the time was in Spokane because there's no they just opened an oncology satellite office this month here
Yay.
well, it's in Moscow, Idaho, which is 8
Oh,
miles away, but
well,
it's
it's
still
closer.
close. Yes.
Yeah,
So I
definitely,
think
definitely closer.
yes, so I think they're going to try to do a support group.
Okay.
So I'll probably join now that I can actually, 8 miles away isn't that big of a deal.
No, yeah, that's certainly doable for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then, do you have any kind of piece of advice or anything that you would offer up to somebody that might be newly diagnosed and just kind of stepping into the breast cancer world?
It's not as bad as one thinks, I would say. I mean, yeah, it sucks at the time, but honestly, you just keep putting your one foot forward and you just focus on, okay, I got through this. I'm still with us. I'm doing great.
Yeah,
I mean, that's my thing is it's like I keep going forward.
absolutely. And I would agree with that, it's some days it's really all that you can do is put one foot in front of the other and just keep
Yep.
going forward because it
I
does
would
suck.
It does, but if you keep your eye, I guess, on the prize that, okay, you're through the worst part, everything else is going downhill, so it's great. I mean, downhill in a good way, you're meaning less surgeries, less treatment. So you got to keep your eye on that, I guess. That's what got me through it. It's like, okay, I made this milestone. Okay, now on to the other.
Right. And do you have any organizations or anything that you tapped into that you thought did a really great job that you could give a kudos to? Did you tap into anything?
I did. So the hospital that I'd never been to in Moscow, Idaho, called Gritman Medical, they actually reached out to me because of the navigator at the clinic that I go to, the cancer center. And so they actually have been kept correspondence with me and and they were like helping me with gas money and all that
Okay.
to drive to treatments if I needed it.
Oh, wonderful. That's
Yeah,
a great thing to have,
it is. 'Cause
especially if
it's
you're driving an hour
driving-
and a half.
correct. So I thought that was really nice of them.
Yeah, very, very cool. Well, I'm going to wrap it up here. You have shared so much of your story and provided some great insight. I personally want to give a big shout out to your sister, Katrina, for even connecting us and letting me know that you were willing to come on the show. So thank you so much for sharing your story. I have no doubt that it's going to inspire and help somebody else.
Thank you. I hope it does.
Absolutely, it will.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Behind the Pink Ribbon. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. If you or anyone you know would be interested in sharing your story, please send an email to podcast@behindthepink.ribbon.com.
Thinking about advertising on this podcast? Our ads not only create awareness for your brand, but also contribute to the continued growth and support of this show. Email us today and be on our next episode. Email podcast@behindthepink.ribbon.com for more information. You've been listening to Behind the Pink Ribbon, produced by American Creative Consulting, mixed and mastered at Riverview Podcasting Studios. For more information, please visit designbyacc.com.